process of configuring and sending bids for a given project. Now I'm starting here on the project summary screen. And in this screen, I just added 5 services that are associated with this project. What I need to do next is for each service, I need to configure the bid information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at this termite inspection here and select this button. And now I'm going to select the date that I want the termite inspection, the time window. I'm going to specify the bid close date. We'll see the importance of this later on. And then lastly, who I'm going to send the bid to. And I have 3 options here. A single preferred vendor on my list, all my preferred vendors, or all vendors, which would be all my preferred vendors, plus all vendors that are in the geographic area of the particular property. So I can only select one of these. So I'll select, in this case, all preferred vendors for the termite inspection. And then if I want to have additional information, I can select this dot button here to add that additional information. I'll go ahead and save the bid configuration. And then I need to configure the remaining 4 before I can send everything. So basically, we're sending everything in a batch. And the reason being is if I have a vendor that has multiple services, by sending them in a batch, they'll receive the multiple services in one notification rather than sending them all piecemeal. So what that requires me to do, though, is to configure all of the bids for each services first, and then I can submit all at the same time. So this next screen that you'll see, this just assumes that I've now entered all of the bid information for each of the services. So now I'm just going to go ahead and select. So now this button is available for me to now submit all of the bids for all of the services on this screen. So we'll go ahead and submit the button there. And now we can see that the status for all of the services has now been changed to bids sent. You can also see this resend link here along with the delete. I'll talk about the resend a little bit later. So let's look at the actual process flow here on what we're doing. So as I mentioned before, so a single batch run of bids requested for one or more services. This just represents that batch of 5 services, and this is the process that it goes through. You'll see BCD, this is the bid close date. This process here does not include acceptance or non-acceptance of bid responses. It just gets us to the point where the responses come in or don't come in. And one key constraint here, one vendor plus service combination can only be associated with one active project request for bid batch process at any given time. Now that is quite the mouthful. So for example, only one request for bid can be running for specialty inspections termite inspection under a given project at any moment in time. So you can't have, and that sort of makes sense. You're not going to have 2 requests for bids out for the same vendor and the same service under the same project at the same time. And we'll see a little bit more when we get into the process. So let's actually now dig into the process here. So starting from left to right, and let me go ahead and move the screen around a little bit so you can see a little bit better. So in starting the process, this right here is where I was in the mobile interface and I selected the button to submit the bid requests for the 5 services. So now I have to look at the flow in terms of each service. So what I'm going to do is the first service that we'll evaluate is the termite inspection. And the first thing I want to do in the flow is, okay, is it a single preferred, all preferred vendors, or all vendors? Well, the option that I selected in the mobile screen was all preferred vendors. So I'm going to take this route. Once I take this route, what will happen is that the request for bid, or RFB, will be queued to send to all the preferred vendors that I have for termite inspection. I'm not going to send anything yet because I'm not going to do the send to the vendors until everything runs through. So right now I'm just going to put it in a queue. So now I'm going to go to this step here and say, hey, is there another service in the batch that I sent? And yes, there are. There are 5. So then I would go through the next 4 in this fashion. Once I've gone through all 5 services here and I filled up my my queue with all the bids, then I'm going to go down the line here, and what'll happen is it'll send all the queued requests for bids to all the respective vendors. So now, again, looking at each individual service, now that I've sent everything out, I'm going to look for each service and see. So for example, for termite, I had a bid close date that I specified. So I'm going to say, hey, have we hit the bid close date yet for the termite service for the particular project? If the answer is yes, then I would have recorded all of those bid responses in the system to reference later. If the answer is no, if no bids have come in by the bid close date for termite inspection, then I'm going to need to notify the owner, the project owner, that no bid responses were received from the service vendors for termite inspections. So at that point, then I can go back in and I can hit the resend button for termite inspection under the project. And then maybe I can say, hey, in this case, I want to include not just preferred vendors, but I want to include all vendors. So I can expand my universe of vendors. That would be on another batch, though. So sticking with this initial batch, we'll then look at the next service, which would be the home inspection. And again, we'll look and see if any responses were recorded. If so, then those would be available in the system. And then, as you can see, we continue this process until we exhaust through all the services and we hit the end of the process. So that is the process of configuring and sending out bids in EST8 system.